Hi, welcome back to the Corvette build. This is part 11, and it's just a short video this time. Just a few updates. Nothing major's happened so far. I've not got around to start painting the hull yet. I'm still working on the first upgrade set, which is the deck fitting set, although I've almost reached the end of that now. There's a few items to show off. I mean, these parts here you can see on these frets, that's pretty much all that's left of the huge number of parts that made up this set. There's a couple of skylights and things to build, and there's some parts for the vents, which I'm going to work on this weekend. The major parts I've worked on this week are these parts which form the stands that fit on the sides of the hull for the floats, the Carly floats. And there's two types of Carly floats. There's a square type and a more traditional sort of dinghy shaped type as well. And one thing I have noticed looking at some of the photos of the actual Corvettes is that this particular part, a lot of them have like an upstand part here with a rack with various items stored in the rack below the dinghies. So I'm going to look at maybe scratch building a few pieces onto this just to add a little bit more interest. But these were really tricky to put together. They're made up of several parts. There's lots of bends in them. You can see where they've been soldered to hold them together, and then I've had to file the excess solder off to just leave it in the joint. And there's some soldering been done underneath as well. These plates, these riveted plates, are all separate pieces that have had to be soldered on. You can see the solder underneath there, and they've all had to be separately attached. So I had to make like a little jig that I could put this together with, because there was two to make. And so quite a bit of work in that. These ones, although the tops were easier on these because these were just made of a single piece, underneath I had to fold up these frames, and this part particularly here, this girder work, is made of about 6 individual parts. So I've had to run the solder into the back. I mean, to try and glue these together, you'd end up in a right mess, and I don't think they'd stay together very long. So solder is the way, really. They've had to have a little bit of work on the front to file off any excess in the gaps, but I think once they're painted up, they'll look pretty decent. You do actually get some splinter plates, these ones here, to fit to the front of these, sort of like that on the front, but it obscures all of this, and not all the Corvettes carried these plates. So I think I might leave these plates off and just leave that open so you can see, and you'll be able to see through to the deck below as well. So those they took up certainly a couple of evenings work. The most interesting item I've built this week, this is the skylight for the engine room that sits on the rear deck. Now this is the one that you get with the kit. It's one part. If you happen to buy the platinum edition, the Revell version, you do actually get some photo etch to stick to these hatches. But as it is, it's inaccurate anyway, because there's only a row of 4 on each side, and there should be 5. So that is replaced with this, and this has taken the longest time to build. This is I've counted up so far on this, there's 95 parts, and it's still not finished because there's some vents to go in these holes on the top, which are made of, there's a white metal part and 2 etch parts of each one. They've got to go on. I could have had all of these hatches open, and each one of them has this little sort of perforated, you can see that on the camera there, just about make it out. There's a little tiny perforated stay inside. But I in the end I just opted for the 2 center ones, which I saw in a photo, and presumably they were to just let a bit of the heat out inside the engine room, and they've all got these little individual clamps on them here. You can see all these tiny parts. These parts of the hinges are separate parts. The hinges themselves are separate parts folded, and they have to be inserted from underneath. So they were all pushed in from underneath, and now I ran solder over them to hold them all in. The hatches have just been glued in place because I didn't really want to damage the upper surface with any solder, so I've glued those in place. I may put a little drop of 5-minute epoxy on these, basically just to make sure that they don't come apart, because they're held on with super glue. They're pretty strong, but over time sometimes the glue can deteriorate a little bit. Obviously it's all got to be painted up yet. The main thing I've still got to add to this, you can maybe see 2 tiny holes in the front of the hatch there. I need to put a tiny thin, almost like a hair of wire through that for the handle. I mean I've sort of got so far with this up to yesterday, and I couldn't go on with it. So I'm going to give it a rest for a couple of days, and then I'll come back in and just attach those handles. Obviously this gets fitted to the deck, but I'll paint this separately before it gets attached to the deck. But I'm really pleased with the way it's come out, and I mean there's just no comparison really, is there, between those 2 parts there. And once you see this, you think, well, you know, what were they thinking with that? I'm sure, even, you know, given that this kit was produced in 1979, that Matchbox could have come up with a slightly better molding than that. This is very toy-like. It's I think they went back to maybe the designers that worked on this kit also worked on, you know, some of the sort of accessories for their die-cast range, because some of the parts are just way oversimplified. Obviously these would have been glazed. Now I'm leaving the glazing out until such time as I've sprayed all this up, and then I'll attach it from inside with some acetate. However, I'm thinking that during operations, I should imagine these would have been blacked out, because obviously they would have had lights on more or less permanently in the engine room, and you wouldn't want those lights shining up through the deck that could be spotted by enemy aircraft. So I'm assuming they would have been painted out, but I'll have to have a look and see if I can locate a picture of that to show that, but presumably they were. So that's a super complicated piece. Another thing that I've got hold of is this set of paints, and these are from Lifecolor. Now I did a bit of research, and I've been all over the internet trying to find out accurate colors for these, and these seem to be the only ones, other than some enamels that are available. These seem to be the only ones I could find that was still available. There's a lot that have been available. When you look them up on the internet, it turns out that they're no longer produced. And I was trying to find a conversion chart which featured these that I could then convert into, say, MiG ammo or AK Interactive or Vallejo, because they're more readily available. But even the conversion charts that I found for Lifecolor, these colours weren't on it. So rather than spend months looking for the parts, I decided to pick up a set of these. The only disadvantage with Lifecolor, I've used them before. They're very good quality paints, but they come in these jars, and so you've got to decant these into the airbrush with a dropper. You know, I do prefer the dropper bottles you get from MIG and AK and the like, but you know, it's not the end of the world. But they do look very, very accurate, the colours, so I'm going to use those. I may need more than just this one bottle for the underside of the hull, the anti-fouling red. But again, I might be able to find, now I've got these colours, I may be able to find another alternative which is very, very close. The plan is I'm going to prime the bottom of the hull with some automotive red primer. It's not the right shade, it's too light, but it'll do as the base colour, and then I'll go over it with the actual colour, so it's going to be very, very close to the original. So I also, not having used these very often, but I've only ever used them once, and that was just one colour. I went ahead and bought the thinners that goes with it as well, because I know some paints don't get on with other manufacturers' thinners, so I thought I'd just play safe and get the one that's recommended. And they also do a set. There's some other sets shown on the end here, and they do a set of Royal Navy colours. I think it's early war, but none of the colours really seem to correspond with the Corvettes. I'm not entirely sure that every colour here is, you know, it's not a sort of complete set for the Corvette anyway, but I've got to do a little bit more research into the colours first. It's difficult to tell from the Revell kit, because the colours they give are Revell paints, and as is usual with the kits, a lot of them are percentages, so it's like 70% of one, 30% of another. They don't specify a specific colour, so I'll do a little bit more research and maybe have a look on the internet and see if I can find people that have built this before and, you know, show the colours. But I do, at least in this set, I do have them for the main colours on the outer hull and some of the superstructure. I just don't think there's the actual colour I need for the deck in here. And obviously the wooden decks I'm going to be painting myself with just the regular paints I use for wood grain effect. So that's kind of it. It doesn't seem like I've done an awful lot, but I mean this thing took certainly 3 evenings to put together, and as I say, a couple of evenings on these, so there's a whole week's work in just those pieces there. Luckily the remaining parts now, these are the hatches, now I've sort of had the practice on these should go together in no time at all, and I can then start looking at some of the rest of the superstructure, and I might do the upper deck parts next. And I'm taking that route, as I said in one of the previous videos. I'm going to build as much as I can. It's what I normally do with a model anyway. I tend not to paint until I need to, so I'm going to spend some time building all the other components, and I'll just have a kit of parts I can then get paint in, and it should come together a lot quicker once the painting starts. The only other thing I did notice is that the white metal parts, although I have super glued some of the parts, I'll just switch to this camera again. These white metal parts here, this is one of those bits that fits on top of the skylight for the engine room. Trying to stick the etch to these, it doesn't work so well, so I may have to epoxy the tiny pieces of etch, because they're bent round. I don't know whether the curve isn't quite right on them, but they keep springing off. They sort of last about 10 minutes and then they suddenly just pop off. And I can't solder them, obviously, because this is white metal. So, although you can solder white metal, you can get a solder for it, but it's for soldering white metal to white metal, not white metal to brass. So I think I might have to use some epoxy on these to get them to stick, but I'll figure that out. Another option might be, and it may not even pick it up on here, it's tiny. See if I can get it to focus a little bit. No, you can't really see it, but on here there are actually some little rivets on this plate, and I could actually drill out the rivets and insert a piece of wire into the white metal to hold it on. So I may look at doing that if the other thing fails. But that's about it for this this update. So as I say, seems like I've not done a huge amount, but I've used an awful lot of parts up this week to just make those five sub-assemblies. So I'll do another couple of days, and then I'll be back with another update. There should be a lot more to look at on the next one, because it'll be some of the major components. And I'm sort of switching from one to the other, really, just to keep my interest up, because it can get a little bit soul destroying, just constantly making tiny parts. So we'll see how we go. So as ever, thanks for watching. I seem to keep picking up subscribers to this, so there must be a lot of people out there with the kit or interested in building the kit or whatever. So thanks if you've subscribed. If you haven't subscribed, then please do, and there'll be another update along in a couple of days. Okay, thanks for watching.